Live from the heart of Baylor Bear Country, the most comprehensive pregame coverage. This is Game Day Live, powered by Sikkim 365 and KWTX News 10.
And good morning, Saturday morning. This is Game Day Live on the CW and 365 Sports. I'm David Smoak with Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak. Houston and Baylor football resume their series. It's been, well, they haven't played since 1996, back when the Big 12 was formed. We will have some history on that. We'll hear from Dana Holgorsen and much more. Paul and Craig, we understand these are two teams that are both floundering in many, many ways, and it's another ESPN Plus game because of that. It's a 2:30 kick. We will be there at the game as well, but also take you up until that time, at least for the next couple of hours. Craig, your thoughts on Houston and Baylor in a game that really is just kind of, unfortunately, in real honesty, is there compared to the other games in the Big 12 today?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it on the show yesterday. I don't know that anybody spent as much time talking about a game of this caliber as we have this week. Normally, games like this don't get much attention or much mention, and that's because neither team's very good, and neither team's in the race for really anything other than trying to perhaps gain bowl eligibility here in the last month. Other than that, there's not a lot to write home about, honestly. Houston's in the midst of whether or not Dana Holgorsen's even going to be their head coach in the long term. And obviously are able to hang their hats on almost beating Texas and, being competitive in their first year in the Big 12. But there's a lot to still sort through there, although rolling into Waco and reigniting this rivalry and getting a win over a team that's been in the Big 12, a league that they felt they should have been in for a long time, to beat a traditional Big 12 team, a Texas team, would be a big deal for Holgo and company, especially coming off the whooping last week. For Baylor, I mean, they're there. And, there's not a lot of momentum. There's not a lot to hang your hat on at the moment. There's a lot of just kind of deja vu week in and week out of saying the same things after losses and then going back the next week and kind of having the same thing happen over again. So, a very interesting game today from the standpoint of not really knowing what to expect from either one, knowing that a win is important for both, just to keep them from, drowning. And so, should be an interesting one, but not in the way you typically would think of an interesting football game. It's just got its own little taste, and it's not the big stage by any means, but it's got its own flavor, and we'll see what they can come up with as far as how competitive this game will be later on this afternoon.
Yeah, this is maybe one of the hardest ones we've had to talk about this year, just because how do you say, like, these are the matchups when neither of these teams does anything particularly well? What's the identity of Houston? What's the identity of Baylor? Their identity is, let's just try to get it done barely while we're playing this team, because they can't – neither team can impose will on either side of the ball. And for Baylor in particular, that is troubling because their whole – reliable, violent offense and the defensive identity that won the conference 2 years ago was all about imposing your will on the other team, and they just don't have that. So they've got to, they had to get creative against Cincinnati, and then you get a win, but then a week later you come back and you play an Iowa State team who can also adapt, and they adapted really well to what Baylor was doing and kind of befuddled them there. And Houston hasn't been able to run the ball well this year. Well, Baylor can't stop the run. Iowa State wasn't running the ball well. They had their best running, can't stop it, can't do it. Really is a tough thing for anybody, and Baylor is that team right now.
If you can't run the ball, even in this day and age of where everyone thinks it's as wide open as it is, and you cannot stop the run, that is just like a time bomb ticking. We're now joined by Darby Brown, who's up with us today from KWTX and the CW at McLean Stadium. Darby, you heard kind of what all of us have said about this game. What is the anticipation, or what level, in your opinion, is there, or is this just a game?
Yeah, I know Paul just said it. This is a tough one that we've had to talk about. And I could say one thing, pulling up here this early in the morning and seeing fans here already getting ready for their tailgates and things, they're trying to make the most of it. Obviously, both programs internally were trying to hype this game up as far as bringing back the old Southwest Conference opponent, although they haven't played, since 1995, which was the year I was born. So I don't know how much excitement can really last that long. But at the same time, I think that maybe is the most interesting piece of this, is just kind of finally bringing these teams back together. But it's a tough one. It's a tough one to really get yourself up and going for, because it's just not been good years for either team. And it does feel like a must win in that way, although time will tell on what they're really winning for as the season goes.
Darby, what is somebody going to do well today? Do you know?
That's a tough question. I mean, I think someone will have to run the football well, and that's something that Baylor has not been able to do. Maybe this is a game where they can finally get that going. And then maybe another thing is, to go on the other side of that, stopping the run also. Those kind of basic things, but when it comes down to it, those both things that these teams have struggled with, and maybe it starts there with the run game on both sides.
Darby, what have you made? I mean, as far as trying to look for bright spots on this team, as we've mentioned, it's kind of hard to do that. But what have you made of a guy like a Dawson Pendergrass? Houston not exactly known for being able to stop the run, but he just seems to have brought a little something to this team that they otherwise haven't had. And in a year where there hasn't been a lot of juice, he's been a young player who's been able to provide some of that for them.
Yeah, I think when I'm talking about running the ball, that he comes to mind. He, at least you saw him lower his shoulder a bit, get that extra yardage, stuff that, Abram Smith was so good at a couple of years ago, and they haven't really had that guy since. I think out of nowhere, he kind of brought some spark to the offense, and maybe he could continue what he did today. That would be great for Baylor. And then they're just going to have younger guys, other than Dawson, step up too, especially with some guys hurt at the receiver position. I mean, it's going to have to be some of those guys kind of like Dawson to just kind of emerge from the scene even today.
Darby, the word I've used some of this week has been malaise, because it does. Craig's mentioned this. Paul's mentioned this. The same thing week after week. They had the nice spurt in those last, 18 minutes against UCF. Played well for most of the game against Utah, but there's just been nothing really there. A lot of people focus in on Dave Aranda's personality, but isn't this something players themselves must come up with their own energy amongst themselves?
Oh, absolutely. Matt Jones earlier this week said he still feels like this is one of the more talented teams that he's been on. And of course, he was on that Big 12 championship team. But then, as I believe Jerry Hill asked the follow-up, well, hey, where's the talent? Where does it go when you're on the field? What's going on? And I think that's really where it comes down to, that they still believe in themselves and in their abilities, but they just have not been able to get it out there on the field. And that has to be on them. I think that they'll even tell you they're set up for success with the plays that they're running. Just one guy isn't doing his job. So it's those little things that people have to start taking more accountability for the rest of the season if they want to try to change things around.
Darby, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, David Smoak in studio. Darby Brown live at McLean Stadium for Houston and Baylor.
Darby, it's misty now, but should be a pretty cool atmosphere today. Nice weather and everything as the sun starts to pop out a little bit more.
Yeah, I was surprised to wake up to all this fog. It's kind of doom and gloom out here, but yesterday was beautiful. So if we get a day like that, it'll help brighten the mood, whether the football is up to the standard of the fans or not. But the weather, the fall weather, can always do good for everybody.
Thank you very much, Darby. We appreciate you. We'll check back in again. Darby Brown up early with us as well on the CW with us on Houston and Baylor, who will kick off at 2:30. When we come back, there's a history between these two teams, although, as she said, they haven't played since she was born. That kind of puts everything in perspective. We'll hear from Dana Holgerson, JJ, Joe, Ricky Thompson, our thoughts, predictions, Garrett Ross with the mothership running it today again as we hear here on 365 Sports. Garrett, do you have the picture last night of retired stockbroker? He's the one to the left, and also in the picture there with his friend, his wife. They were at one of the places here in Waco, came into town. Houston, huge Houston donor and alum, and got a chance to go by there and say hi to them. It's always great to get to meet those of you who watch us on 365 Sports throughout the week. All right, when we come back, we have quite the bit to get to. The history of this series and more. Also, Garrett Ross and his keys to the game. Baylor and Houston, Game Day Live on the CW and 365 Sports.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
Hello, I'm Sharon Kerr, and I recommend Tony Lenore and Syntex Roof System to all my friends, my family, and clients.
When it came time to replace our roof, making an investment in your home. And when you're doing something like that, you want to make sure it's somebody that's got high character, which made Syntex Roof Systems the obvious choice.
Well, I had a hail claim, and Syntex Roof Systems made a stressful situation into a very easy situation.
For your hometown roofer, we approve this message.
Hi, my name is Randy Crook. I'm the president of Waco Goodfellas. Our organization strives to ensure that every kid has a chance to believe in Santa Claus. Over the last 30 years, we've touched the lives of over 5,000 children, each one leaving away with a gift, a smile, and the belief that kindness still exists. This year, we're hoping to raise $10,000 to deliver a piece of Christmas to hundreds of homes across Waco, not only to fill the hearts of the kids, but the family as a whole.
When the sun rises over Central Texas, we know there's work to be done. So if you need to dig, haul, cut, lift, mow, or anything in between, your local Bobcat dealers in Waco and Temple have all the equipment you'll need to get the job done right. We sell, we rent, and we've got parts and service to keep you up and running, no matter where the job takes you. There's work to do. Let's get it done.
Baylor football today will be wearing mainly the all-whites, but here's the helmet with a U.S. military flair, the camouflage look to it. There was somebody in the Sikkim 365 forums who said as a veteran, wearing that particular type helmet means a lot to him and others. And there is the helmet they'll wear with the camouflage look. And then here's the uniform. The almost icy white is what they'll wear today. I think a lot of people will like that today, that different look for Baylor.
It's not almost icy white. It's icy white.
There's
all
green
white.
in it, too. Yeah, that's why I said almost.
Yeah. But, I mean, UT wears the icy whites. All whites are icy whites. And so, yeah, that's an interesting look on a day game. Not really knowing where they came from, just the all-white look. I guess we'll see the color side from Houston and what they wear. I haven't checked out what they were going to wear today. But, yeah, I mean, that'll be a different shakeup of the look and the nice little camouflage nod there. So, yeah, that's something a little bit different for those who want, uniform changes and whatnot. There's a slight little wrinkle to, I guess, wrap your head around.
I learned something every day. Apparently, there's icy cold mountains somewhere near here.
Yeah, right.
Remember 2021?
Yeah.
They took that picture
That's
back
when they took that
during
picture.
the Ice-Ageddon of 2021.
Yeah, the mountains are the thing I'm more surprised about. No,
That's
great
the
work.
hill country.
Yeah. No, they look really, really good. I like when when they debuted the new uniforms, the only ones I particularly cared for were the all whites.
Yeah.
The other ones, like just my personal taste, I wasn't nuts about, but I do think they look the best in the all whites. Most teams do. Like some teams, it looks off because they don't normally do that.
Yep.
But for Baylor, for most teams, like when they rock those all whites, like even the University of Texas, which I don't have many compliments for, as you guys know, when they rock their all whites, it looks pretty smooth.
No, I like them. I do. I like the all whites, and of course Houston today. Here's what Crash Davis on the forum said. As a veteran that served multiple tours in the war on Christmas, I can't tell you how much this tribute to the troops means to us. So that's really cool to see that. Now, Baylor and Houston have, a pretty good series over the years. This is the 29th meeting between the two. The first one came back in 1950, Baylor winning 34-7. The last one, Baylor won by 40 in 1995, and then that was interrupted because of the Southwest Conference dying and the Big 12 forming. When they've played in Waco, Baylor has an 8-6-1 record. Houston up 7-6. The largest margin of victory for Baylor was both in 1954 in the game I mentioned, in 95 by 40, and then Houston, when they ran that run and shoot, they put that up against a lot of people, crushing Baylor in 1989, 66-10.
If you lost to Baylor by 40 in 1995, you were at your depths. but because both those teams were very good back then. But it was a great rivalry when it's in the Southwest Conference. Houston's been through it when it comes to conferences. And, I heard at the Southwest Conference Hall of Fame, the induction banquet for the first class of that, Bill Yeoman got up and spoke about them being inducted in, or coming into the Southwest Conference, and his AD coming to him, or the president, I guess he was the AD at the time, and saying, hey, we've got an opportunity to be in the Southwest Conference. Do you want to do it? And he's like, why did you come and ask me? You should have just told him yes now. And what they've kind of been through, riding through, and they had all these rivals they built up over that time too that just went away forever. To not play somebody for 28 years that you played all the time and then to bring it back, I think it's pretty cool. The problem is, okay, Darby's generation has no perspective on it because she was born that year. So it is, I hope this becomes a really cool rivalry in the Big 12 again, because really, we saw with the schedule release this week, there's not a lot. I mean, there's not rivalries. They're going to have to build it. The league is essentially starting from scratch. I know that some fan bases won't feel that way, but it really is.
Yeah, there's definitely some Southwest Conference romanticizing that goes on for a conference that ultimately failed and, disbanded and all that. But for the older crowd, there is that, like I said, romanticizing of what they grew up watching. And so this brings some of that back, like, TCU when they got back fully in the fold and, you got to play conference games against them again. Now it's the same thing with Houston. So I know it's exciting for the Cougars fans. I know it's exciting to some extent for Baylor and Tech and TCU, and I'm sure there's some Texas fans you could round up that enjoy that part of it as well, even though they're going to enjoy where they're eventually headed. So yeah, it's cool. Wish there was more on the line for both teams to be playing for, but there is pride. There's always pride, no matter what your record is, and that certainly comes into play with an in-state game. So it's a league that needs some rivalries, and for all the hand-wringing over why, Oklahoma State's not playing so-and-so every week or every year or whatever, or Farmageddon being a big example, I can understand the history going to the wayside and not exactly being thrilled about that. But, there's a reason, the Big 12's had to change for a reason. And it's not, you can't just throw Iowa State, Oklahoma State on there and that's a rivalry and expect it. You got to get ratings. You got to create something new. And so I think that's where they're coming from with the schedule and only establishing that there's, 4 or so rivalries that they're going to maintain, and they need others to step up and become rivalries. And so maybe this is one of those in the long run. I don't know how much they can really create something based on the circumstances right now, but this is the first chapter and maybe what becomes a very interesting book on, this second part of this potential Baylor-Houston rivalry.
Tell me what conference Houston, we know they were a part of the American, without looking it up, but I did not know this, didn't remember this. What conference did they go to after the Southwest Conference died?
Conference USA.
Conference USA, absolutely. They started in the Lone Star Conference in the 40s, then went to the Gulf Coast Conference, the Missouri Conference, then the Independent, and they were really good with Bill Yeoman from 1960 to 75, then the Southwest Conference from 1976 to 95 for 20 years. Conference USA for about almost 17 years. And then the American from 2013 until last year. They have been to 30 bowl games. They've won 11 conference titles, and so that's the history of them, and they were really good running the veer back in the 70s with Bill Yeoman leading the way. All right, when we come back, Garrett Ross, keys to the game. We will hear from 2 former Baylor players in J.J. Joe and Ricky Thompson. We'll have our picks today and hear from Dana Holgerson about Houston and Baylor. He's pumped up for the game, and he even was 3 years ago. This is Game Day Live on the CW and 365 Sports.
Cars priced right both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you. Red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Verno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
What up, everybody? Welcome back into Game Day Live. I'm Garrett Ross with today's Keys to the Game presented by Richard Carr Motors. Our first key to today's game is going to be eliminate crossing routes across the middle. If you look at Baylor's defense this season, this is one area where they have struggled tremendously, even going back to the opening game against Texas State. This linebacking core is really slow compared to a lot of the cores out there across the nation. And teams against Baylor have been able to expose that this year when you get these short receivers, these quick receivers that are able to get loose across the middle, get the Baylor linebackers running laterally, and they just can't keep up. And when you look at what Houston likes to do on their offense, when you have a guy like Joseph Manchek, it's exactly that. They want to get him loose across the middle, get him out in space, running, catching the ball while he's in the middle of his route, cut up field, and take it to the house. And when you also have that, but you also got to worry about Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden is another guy who, 9 times out of 10, Golden's going to stretch you deep. But I think that seeing the weakness for Baylor's defense in this standpoint, I would expect to see Matthew Golden involved a lot across the middle as well, and probably get your tight ends involved if you're Houston in this game, because I feel like this is an area where the Cougs can really exploit and take advantage of Baylor. Baylor has got to shore this thing up. They've got to be able to lock those receivers down. Communicate better. If you see somebody going across the middle, just give somebody a heads up to get out there on them. But if Baylor can do that, and they must do that, that's going to be really one of their only hopes of slowing down this Houston offensive attack. Our second key to the game is going to be have another receiver step up. Throughout the course of this season, Baylor has really struggled to have guys step up from the playmaker position in general. But as far as your receivers go, it's really been what can Monterey Baldwin do for you? And if he's taken away, then there's really not much. Keytron Jackson was that guy. He was really your true deep threat. He got banged up last week. He's going to miss this game. And what that does is that's going to open up Armani Winfield to have the opportunity to come in, step up for Keytron, and try to be that guy. And Armani is one of those people that when he was recruited by Baylor, he was expected to be that next playmaker, that next star that was on the rise. And unfortunately, we just haven't seen that. And I know a lot of that is like the practice and getting the reps and not being able to get the reps with the first team. Well, Armani's going to have that opportunity this week as they get prepared for Houston. And you need to have a big game for him. We've seen Josh Cameron step up at times and do his thing. He's really explosive, and he's got some good hands on him as well. But these receivers as a whole have struggled all year long, and not just them, but even like the tight ends have struggled. You go back and look at that first drive last week, and Drake Dabney had an opportunity to put Baylor on the board, drops the ball, and just really kind of killed the whole momentum for the game. The offense was never really to get over that, and that's an area they struggle. So you're definitely going to need a guy like Armani Winfield to step up, capitalize on this moment, and make the most of it. And if it's not him, that's got to be Josh Cameron. You've got to get Jordan Neighbors involved as well. Baylor has some young talent in that room, but this is their opportunity to step up and shine and see what they can do for the Bears. Finally, our last key to the game is honestly, it's going to be just play with the pulse. I mean, this team, at times, they look dejected. They look like they're starting to buy into where the fan base is kind of checked out. And you don't okay, it's one thing if your fan base checks out, and that's understandable at this point, but you've got to have these seniors, these guys like Gabe Hall and Garmin Randolph, TJ Franklin. I know I've been harping on them all year, but it's rightfully so, man. They just have not stepped up to the moment. A lot of these guys just look like they've checked out of this season. You can't have that, especially from your senior leadership. They've got to be the ones that set the tone. They've got to be the ones that these younger guys are looking up to, when unfortunately for Baylor, it's kind of been the total opposite. You've had the younger guys that are ones that have been showing out and playing with the pulse all year long. This team has got to take care of business. They got to act like they want to be out there on the field. They got to act like they want to be playing in green and gold, and they got to be willing to adapt, and they've got to be willing to play and give it our all for David Randa and this staff. We just did not see that last week from this team, and it's really something we've struggled to see all year long. Baylor has got to play with the pulse. You've got to get this win. You've got to get a significant win at McLean Stadium, because you have West Virginia as your only hope at the end of the year. And realistically, the way Baylor's playing right now, that I don't see that happening. And when you still have to go to Kansas State, you still got to go to TCU. You struggled on the road traditionally with those teams, and they're pretty good. But I need to see this Baylor team play like they want to be out there, play with the pulse, and show some heart and show some grit. And they have to do that if they want to get this win against Houston. That's going to do it for today's Keys to the Games. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Game Day Live right after this.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Carol Weaver here from Waco Mattress Center, your local mattress experts. Our team prides itself on saying no. No fine print, no gimmicks, no hidden costs, no long waits. Our experts will help you find the right mattress that fits your needs. We make you two promises. We won't sell you a mattress we wouldn't sleep on, and order by 3, get same-day delivery. You have plenty of options to shop, but why waste your time? Come see us at Waco Mattress Center. Thank you for your business.
I don't know what any of this stuff is.
Is the Jeep not starting?
Token, can you please come help?
Y'all call for a tow?
Yes.
Y'all call for a tow?
Yes.
Call Tow King 24 hours a day for all your emergency roadside needs.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.
Download the KWTX First Alert Weather app, sponsored by Capital Farm Credit.
Ricky Thompson joins us, 365 Sports. And Ricky, thanks for your time. Would you consider what you have seen, and you're right there on the sideline, is that, and I guess one of the words to describe where Baylor might be is kind of in a malaise?
Yeah, I think maybe. It's really hard to wrap your arms around it, truthfully. I've seen a lot of football, a lot of games over a lot of years with a lot of different teams. And I think sometimes that teams struggle with identity. And I know that sounds funny, but I think they do. And I think that's a lot of what's happened here. I just don't think we go back to 21 a lot, because that was a team that was 12-2, fifth in the country. There was an identity there. You knew that Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie, JT Woods on defense were going to make plays. You know what kind of defense we were going to run. It was going to be aggressive. Not a lot of press outside with corners because you didn't have to. Offensively, downhill running game, you had a good offensive line. You had Abram Smith, and you had Tyquan outside who could really fly. And I'm just not sure that I have a real identity to this team on either side of the ball at this point. And that's not being critical. That's just what I see as I watch, that it's hard to tell. And with that, it's really hard to describe what the major issues are and why this team is 3-5 at this point.
Yeah, Ricky, it turns into whack-a-mole, right? When you don't know what the identity is, because you have to just week to week go, okay, last week it was how can Baylor do what they need to do against Iowa State? Well, now, because they don't have an identity, it's not like they can just go back to, okay, this is what we do and we're going to do it against Houston. What will Houston give them? So you're kind of solving one problem while another one pops up.
Well, yeah, and remember, too, that every team you play is different. Their identity is different. You have to adjust to that. Houston's offense is going to be nothing similar to what Iowa State ran. They're going to spread it out. We know what they do. We know what Holgorsen runs. You've seen it in the past. I don't think it will be anything that we're not familiar with. And in that regard, I do feel good that defensively we've been seeing three corners in the game a lot. Now, a couple of those guys are really inexperienced, and I think that was exposed a little bit last Saturday, but I really don't have a problem with that. I like those guys playing. You know that a veteran receiver on occasion is going to flip that guy's hips the wrong way, and he's going to look a little silly. But they're good players, and they're going to be really good as they develop. But right now, sometimes it's a little painful. But I do like that adjustment very much, that you see most of the time you'll see a corner out there on the slot guy. And I'm guessing with Houston's offense and the spread that they run, I bet you see three corners in the game most of the time on Saturday.
Ricky, there was the media this week, and Dave Aranda talked about how he feels like they're just so close. You know, it's just a matter of making some plays here and there. And then the players talked, and they kind of said the same thing of watching film of like guys are where they need to be, they just don't make the play or whatnot. How much do you attribute the struggles to just things like missed tackles, or is it in your mind more schematic in the way that they are, you know, defending or going on the offense? Is it break down to as simple as just clean up the execution and that's all there is to it, or is it deeper than that in your mind?
Well, Craig, I think cleaning those things up would change both sides of the ball dramatically. But I still think maybe you have to go to some scheme things too. So I would say both categories, but I can just tell you defensively, man, if we just tackle, we could have saved a ton of yards in the running game. We've had guys in position, Cincinnati in particular. I mean, particularly late in the game, we had guys in position to make plays, which tells me that probably have the right defense called, but we just don't make a play. And I think that comes with confidence. I've talked before, once you make 2 or 3 plays, that just comes with you expect you're going to make it. But, man, I just think tackling-wise, this may be as poor a tackling team as we've seen in a long time. And just changing that could really make a difference, particularly defensively, because everyone knows our run defense has struggled. And I attribute much of that to tackle.
Can't stop the run, and you can't run the ball. We talked to Phil Bennett about that on Monday night. That's a deadly combination.
Well, it is. And everybody talks about the spread, run the spread. And you know me, receiver, I love the spread. But most of these spreads teams run the heck out of the football.
Yes, they do.
I mean, they go for 250, 300 yards in the running game out of the spread. So just because you go to the spread doesn't mean you're not going to run it. And I can tell you, Houston will try to run it out of the spread, and we better be ready to stop it there. And sometimes I think even more difficult it is to stop the run out of the spread because of those lineman splits. Man, they spread you out. You have holes that are created without even blocking anybody. You just make contact, turn your body one way or the other if you're the offensive lineman, and that's an option for you. You don't have to push one way or the other. Just get your best position, and those holes are gaping. We've seen it in the past here, and I just think that no matter what the other team is running, you have to stop the run to really be successful. And I know teams can come out and throw for 400 or 500 yards, but I'd rather see that than them run for 300, because that means they're dominating the game and they're doing it up front, and at the same time they're running clock, and that's hard to beat.
Ricky, do you think that they need to evaluate which kind of talent they're going after? Because, I mean, I guess they would if they changed their scheme too.
Well, I think they're doing that. Hopefully they're doing that, and hopefully with that, they develop into what schemes that they particularly want to run and what type players they want. I think we've mentioned, I think these last couple of recruiting classes have been pretty good, but two doesn't do it. You've got to stack them on top of each other, and I think everybody knows that teams recruit to their systems. So I think going forward, during these last 4 games or at the end of the season, we've got to decide what that system is, and then you've got to recruit to it. And I don't think it's misleading to think you have to have 5-star guys to win, because a lot of these kids in high school develop over time, and if you're getting 3-4-star kids, that's good enough if you're in the right scheme, and I think you win with them. We've done it here before. We've done it forever here. So I think the main thing is figure out who you are, recruit the players that fit in that, and then go run it, and don't go back and forth between what you run.
Ricky, thank you. Appreciate your time as always. Enjoy it. Alliance Bank, Central Texas, again, sponsor of both JJ Joe on Monday. Ricky Thompson with us.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
In Waco, Texas, we value education. We're proud of Baylor University, McLennan Community College, and TSTC. At Jeff Hunter Toyota, we share these Waco values. It's how we serve our customers better and provide the highest quality service. In Waco, this is who we are, and this is what we drive. Shop Jeff Hunter Toyota. Toyota quality, Waco values.
Hi, my name is Randy Crook. I'm the president of Waco Goodfellas. Our organization strives to ensure that every kid has a chance to believe in Santa Claus. Over the last 30 years, we've touched the lives of over 5,000 children, each one leaving away with a gift, a smile, and the belief that kindness still exists. This year, we're hoping to raise $10,000 to deliver a piece of Christmas to hundreds of homes across Waco, not only to fill the hearts of the kids, but the family as a whole.
One college football story that occurred yesterday evening right after we finished our afternoon show on 365 Sports is, of course, the story involving Michigan football and the allegations and evidence, among some other things as well, with Connor Stallions, the assistant on the Michigan staff, the recruiting analyst involving Michigan in sign stealing. Yesterday evening, Connor Stallions, according to Michigan, resigned. And he's not saying anything. He said that he does not know of any way that Jim Harbaugh or anyone on staff knew of what he was doing, and he now is out of the picture, but that does not end the story.
It's one of the least believable resignations. I mean, you can't, he would probably have been better off not saying that, because now he's opened up, and it was going to happen anyway. But when he says that no other coach told him to do this, if there's any kind of paper trail, well, there's going to be a Freedom of Information Act. And I don't know. I'm very confused at the, absolute allegiance and fandom of a guy who is willing to, and look, he's not going to go to prison or anything for any of this, but for the rest of his career, and he's a young guy, he's going to have ethics questions following around, and for what? He's getting paid $55,000 a year. What Jim Harbaugh, does he care about what happens to Connor Stallions after this is all over for him? He's just going to go, even if he gets fired from Michigan, we've already talked about it a bunch, he's going to go get another, 7-figure plus, maybe 8-figure a year job coaching somewhere. So what was it worth to you, Connor Stallions?
Well, Paul, never underestimate people's need to feel important.
Yeah.
I think that, Connor Stallions probably felt like he was a big deal inside of, that Michigan football program and when it came to their success. And he doesn't realize Harbaugh will crumple him up like a piece of paper and toss him to the side the moment he needs to. But for as long as Harbaugh needed him to be there to support and help and cheat and do whatever else he needed to do, Stallions was there and obviously made to feel important and made to feel important enough that he wrote a manifesto of how many pages was it? Like 300 pages or
it was large.
Whatever, manifesto about how he would, along with another guy, help guide Michigan football in the future. So, the guy was pretty into what he was doing and where he was doing it and obviously loved what he was a part of and felt like he was a big part of it and felt like he could be an even bigger part in the future, obviously, when you're writing manifestos. So, yeah, I that's what I think of. I never underestimate somebody's, need to feel important. And obviously, he felt like he had an important role there at Michigan. And, what role that was exactly, they're obviously not going to be totally open about. There, is a lot to peel back still from this story. It's all very bizarre. But, yeah, he was supposedly fired. And you at least go, oh, well, Michigan did something right. And then it turns out, oh, no, he just resigned. It's like, okay, so then they clearly came to an agreement behind the scenes is what happened. Is Michigan's like, hey, we need you to get out of here. We'll come to this agreement. You resign. And then, boom, we're done with it. And I think that's pretty clearly what happened here, as far as how and, what goes on from this next is, the mystery. But, yeah, it's just a wild story.
It is. By the way, one more thought about it. And, again, several media outlets reporting not only that, but that there are pretty simmering, more than that eventually there would be some sort of discipline to Jim Harbaugh, the head coach at Michigan. Here's one thing that we like Brett McMurphy. We've had him on many, many times. ESPN hammering Michigan and Jim Harbaugh for sign stealing when ESPN continually steals and fails to credit reporters and news organizations for news ESPN didn't break.
Yeah.
Shots fired in that particular case.
I think it's slightly different. But, yeah, and look, Jim Harbaugh needs to get hammered in this when the evidence all comes out. This is getting very bizarre. And then the even more bizarre turn yesterday that Ryan Day might have hired a private or, set through some not so back channels to hire a PI to find this out. And some of this information might have been gotten illegally. And all that's going to make it look is that, Michigan's still cheating, but Ohio State had to bend the rules or break the rules to figure out they were cheating. It's ridiculous. The Big Ten has given me a headache right now, and it's just so silly.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, what's it all for? What's it all for? Michigan, you were so good. You could have done this without all this. What's it all for?
This is college football, though.
Yeah,
guys, what are we talking about? Of all the sports, let's not act like surprised that this is something like this is going on. This is a sport of sports where you try to find every advantage that you can, however you can. And we've seen that in various instances and various types of stories, for years and years and years. It's the same. We glorify Barry Switzer for parking a car outside of a hotel that he had a recruit inside of the night before signing day so that no other coach could get to him. And we're like, ha, 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 that's hilarious. And it is, but it's that's the sport. That's part of why we love it. It's part of why it's so goofy. And it's part of why a lot of people are just like, how could you possibly enjoy that? You know what I mean? But it's what we love, and it's part of the weirdness that comes with it. I do think, though, it does reach certain points, like in this instance, where it's like, yeah, like how desperate are you for success that you're willing to go this far, and when you've got everything at your disposal that you need to have some sort of elaborate setup like this. But I mean, who's to say they're the only ones, or something that doesn't have something similar going on? But for an institution like that who prides himself on Michigan man this and Michigan man that and all these types of things, and then to see their fans scurry to try and excuse it, well, it's not technically against the rules, and it's like, man, it's not even about technically, it's about what's right and what's wrong, and it's pretty clear that there was something wrong going on in Michigan's football's approach to preparations for upcoming games and whatnot. So, yeah, it's weird. This Connor Stallion dudes is weird, but again, don't underestimate people's desire to feel wanted and to feel like they're a part of success, and I think that we're seeing that with this guy, and I do wonder how much more we're going to be diving into more and more about this story.
We will look at the Big 12 and top 25 schedule, but one note, Dana Holgorsen, the head coach at Houston, he and Dave Aranda were on the same staff at one point when he was at Texas Tech. Dave Aranda at one point was on a staff at Houston. He started, Holgorsen, his career at Valdosta State as an offensive coach, quarterbacks, wide receivers, special teams. He was at Mississippi College, then Wingate, then at Texas Tech for quite some time with Mike Leach, went to Houston as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, Oklahoma State 2010, then West Virginia as their head coach, and then has been the Houston head coach since 2019. He was asked this week about this game, this rivalry that's being renewed, and also Baylor.
Dana, in terms of season goals or what you want to accomplish, is Saturday and this point forward, is this about as close to a must-win now?
It's pivotal, and we've known this would be the case for quite some time. I mean, things that have happened this year are not surprising to me. We got a lot of football ahead of us. I'm excited about this week. I'm excited about Baylor. The month of October was a tough month. We knew it was going to be a tough month. The build up to the Thursday night game was huge. The win was huge. The mighty Texas Longhorns 10 days later was challenging, none of which were more challenging than what we faced last week. Could have told you that when the schedule came out. I'm glad to get to November, and I'm excited about moving on to Baylor. This one has history. This is the same thing as like the Texas history stuff, right? This is the 29th matchup between us and Baylor, old Southwest Conference days. The 20 years that Houston was in the Southwest Conference, this was a yearly game, back and forth game, 13-14-1, I believe is what the record is. So it's a pretty evenly matched rival game, so to speak. 3 hours up the road. All our players know all their players. This one's going to be fun. I'm excited about it. Must wins and all that stuff. I mean, every game is a game that you need to line up and try to win. This is certainly one for us and them. We've both had similar seasons, so to speak. Coach Aranda's done a great job there. I'm excited about going back and getting this thing started back up, getting this game started back up. It's great for the fan base. Both fan bases should be excited about this game. Going to happen every year moving forward. Our goals are still out there. We got games that I expect to go compete in. We didn't compete very hard last week. I don't think that's who we are. If you look back and I give Kansas State all the credit in the world. I mean, that place is ridiculously awesome, and their fan base is incredible. They're well coached. Their program pride is as good as anywhere I've ever seen. What they've done the last 10 quarters of football is impressive. They're playing as good as anybody in the country right now. It's defending Big 12 champs. Give them all the credit in the world. They executed. We didn't. And, with that said, it's over. And I'm not talking about it very much. I'm talking about Baylor. And so and that's going to be the message to my team here at our 115 team meeting is that's not who we were. Let's go play better at Baylor. Let's go compete and try to win a ball game here this week at Baylor. We got games on our schedule moving forward that are a little bit more favorable for us than what we dealt with last week. I think we all know that.
I think he knows that he's got a game that they can win, and obviously Dave Aranda feels the same thing with Baylor. And we will look at the Big 12 schedule today because there are 3 games that have a lot of implications on the possibility of who plays down the road that first weekend in December in the Big 12 championship game. Joseph Duarte from the Chronicle, Houston Chronicle, tried to bait him on the 2020 game when they made the game up. Remember, they're going to play the game because of COVID and games were being canceled. And their 18-wheeler was on the premises at McLean Stadium. And Dana made a comment on Twitter about, we were ready to go. We're still ready to go. And then when he was asked that by Duarte, he said, I'm not going to go there, but I'm ready to play because Mac got mad at me the last time I said that. Because speaking of AD, Mac Rhodes, who once was at Houston.
He got mad at him on our show. I mean, we asked him directly about it, and that was where I think the comment came from. And he was because, I get like coaches – there was a lot, especially that year, there was a lot of bravado about this team canceled that and canceled this. And, that was always surprised when I get you being upset that you can't play. Everybody's upset you can't play. And nobody was sitting there going oh, we better not play so-and-so. It was that much of a disaster all year long. The fact that you were even attempting to me, was the effort was all worth it. If you couldn't do it, you couldn't do it, but at least you were trying because some people weren't even trying. Everyone was trying to figure everything out because there was so much unknown. Yeah, it was just those things where you get mad, and I get being mad in the moment, but it seemed it was such a silly thing at the time.
Yeah, a lot of people were frustrated back then about a lot of different things, and obviously that was a situation where you felt like you had a game that you were going to finally be able to play, and I'm sure from Houston's point of view, they felt like they could probably go win that game that year based on, how tough of a season that was for Baylor. I think Houston probably felt like they could have rolled in at that time and probably won, and that would have been a big win for them, but alas, had to wait a while, and now they're members of the same conference, so sure it was all well worth it in the end, and if they win today, then it certainly will be, and can reflect back on that and laugh a little bit, and I think everybody kind of does that anyways, knowing how silly that whole time period was. So, yeah, I'm glad that he's not, still dwelling on that 2 years later. Everybody's emotions were running high back then, and now it's a much different situation, but I think that they, once again, 2 years later, still feel like they can roll into town and beat Baylor, and that's very well what they expect to do later on today. And we'll see, if the Bears can put up a fight at home. But, we're finally here, and we can finally see, and somebody will walk away with bragging rights here at the end of it.
We'll come back with the schedules of the day's games, and also a little bit later on, we'll hear from former Baylor quarterback and Baylor radio J.J. Joe. Darby Brown will join us again from McLean Stadium. It's much earlier than we are normally on when it comes to the pregame, usually about 2 hours ahead of kickoff. Kickoff's not till 2:30. We will take you up until 11:30 and then resume or get back to CW programming. This is 365 Sports and the CW.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, indoor cycling, bars, silver sneakers, and more. If you haven't been to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness lately, you're missing out on the improvements. New flooring in the weight room floor and locker rooms, new paint and mirrors added to the weight room and group exercise room, and many new machines have been added and arriving constantly on the weight room floor. New free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new ellipticals on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Box, and welcome to Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow. A kids club included with your membership, plus sauna, whirlpool, and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com or visit us at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Game Day Live on Sikkim 365 Radio is brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac, Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, TFNB, your bank for life, Three Nations Brewing Company, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness, Edward Jones Advisors, Ben Erlinson, Chuck Burno, Brad Wilson, and Cam Heathcott, and Bubba's 33.
David Smoak, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Garrett Ross, 365 Sports, and the CW. So this is a pretty sexy weekend for the Big 12 when it comes to football. There are some games that matter. Every weekend there is, but here are the games. On Thursday night, Texas Tech beat TCU 35-28 to get to their 4th win of the year, and a much-needed win for them. TCU drops now from last year, playing for the national title, to now 4-5. There is the game at 11 o'clock. Starting in 3 minutes, Kansas State and Texas. 2 teams. K-State's on a tremendous run. You heard Dana Holgerson just say that. Texas, number 7 in the country and the college football playoff standings. Bedlam. There's the Houston and Baylor game. Bedlam could be the last time they ever play. UCF and Cincinnati. Iowa State host KU after the win against Oklahoma. And tonight, West Virginia, BYU. That game is on FS1.
Yeah, the big 3 this week: the Kansas at Iowa State, Kansas State at Texas, and bye Bedlam are huge. I mean, you're going to have head-to-head over people when it comes down to tiebreakers for schools that are in contention. You could put. I think the most intriguing thing is that a month ago we thought Oklahoma and Texas were just going to play twice based on how everybody else in the Big 12 was playing, and now that's way less of a possibility. And if they both lose today, then it looks like the next time they'll play is when they're SEC members.
Yeah. If they both win today, though, that's probably going to be a Big 12 championship rematch. Mm-hmm. So today's a huge day in that regard. And, it's more interesting of a race than we thought at the very beginning when it looked like those two might run away with it. Thankfully, Kansas has proven to, have improved since that, early loss. And, they've gotten better. Although, how much better are they? They've beaten up on a bad TCU team and a middle of the road TCU team, middle of the road Texas Tech team, and a below average Houston team. I mean, so Kansas State's been running through people, but they're about to get a much bigger test and stiffer test today with Texas. Texas, though, same thing. I mean, they played some good teams, but K-State will be a huge challenge for them, especially with Malik Murphy at quarterback. They've beaten 2 very overmatched teams in Houston and BYU the last couple of weeks. So, the last big test they had like this, they fell to Oklahoma in a close one. But then again, other than that, that's their only blemish. So something has to give there. K-State will be ruled out entirely. or they'll ruin Texas's playoff and Big 12 hopes to some extent. Playoffs for sure they would ruin with a win in Austin. But yeah, that's going to be a great game. Bedlam's going to be amazing. A lot of stakes there as far as the Big 12 title goes. And then, as you mentioned as well, that Iowa State-Kansas game's got some pretty big implications for both teams in terms of just positioning and bowl berths and things like that. So, it's a huge slate there at the top. The other three games have varying levels of interest. Cincinnati, UCF, somebody has to win their first Big 12 game, although with the caveat that it's not against the traditional Big 12 team. It's against, somebody they just entered the league with this year. So they'll both have to wait for a win over a Tech or a Baylor or someone like that. But they can at least get their first conference win. We've talked about Baylor, Houston. I mean, there's really nothing but pride at stake in that one. It's an interesting weekend.
It is, and it's like there's three games that have a lot on the line. And like Big 12 championship game opportunities on the line, as you mentioned. And then there's a couple of them that right now, UCF, Cincinnati, still important, trying to get their first win, as you mentioned, in conference play, and a Big 12 conference win too. So there's that. Now, there are three games in the top 25 in college football that we call bangers. You have Missouri, who's had a really nice year. Part of it was that walk-off 60-plus yard field goal against K-State, against unbeaten and rolling along. Georgia, have they been tested much? I don't know. That game's on CBS. Washington at USC tonight at 6:30 on ABC. And then LSU, Alabama. Later on this evening, that game on CBS. It's the last CBS SEC doubleheader because obviously they head to the Big Ten, covering the Big Ten starting next year.
Very interesting column on Yahoo. Ross Dellinger wrote this week about how that divorce started like a decade ago. And maybe even a little bit longer, but started when the last round of expansion came in, and CBS did not give pro rata to the SEC for A&M and Mizzou, and then ESPN did, and it created a lot of tension in the subsequent negotiations until this one, where the SEC and CBS are parting ways after this year.
And the SEC has also picked up Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So, they definitely got more out of that ESPN marriage as far as adding teams and whatnot goes. If that was their goal, clearly it was based on what you're saying. They wanted pro rata and go get Texas and Oklahoma, and ESPN paid the piper. So it worked out well for them. I mean, that is a long-time marriage, though. That'll be, much different to turn on CBS next year and not have the SEC, as a part of it and have them fully over on the ESPN network. So, yeah, that's interesting that this will be the last run of that big doubleheader. And, great game, though, LSU, Alabama. That ought to be a lot of fun. And Mizzou, Georgia, hopefully that is as well. Remains to be seen just how competitive Missouri can be with the juggernaut that is Georgia. We haven't seen Georgia tested all that much either, though, at the same time. So, both those games have a lot of interest attached to them.
When we come back, we're going to hear one more time from Darby Brown and also former Baylor quarterback J.J. Joe, Baylor Radio, his thoughts about this offense and also this game with Houston. This is 365 Sports and the CW.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
In Waco, Texas, we value education. We're proud of Baylor University, McLennan Community College, and TSTC. At Jeff Hunter Toyota, we share these Waco values. It's how we serve our customers better and provide the highest quality service. In Waco, this is who we are. And this is what we drive. Shop Jeff Hunter Toyota. Toyota quality, Waco values.
Hi, my name is Randy Crook. I'm the president of Waco Goodfellas. Our organization strives to ensure that every kid has a chance to believe in Santa Claus. Over the last 30 years, we've touched the lives of over 5,000 children, each one leaving away with a gift, a smile, and the belief that kindness still exists. This year, we're hoping to raise $10,000 to deliver a piece of Christmas to hundreds of homes across Waco, not only to fill the hearts of the kids, but the family as a whole.
Appreciate JJ Joe on Mondays. It has not been easy because of the year that Baylor has had, and yet another loss at home against Iowa State. JJ joins Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak.
JJ, Blake had his worst game of the year on Saturday. And look, he was bound. I mean, nobody has 12 good ones, really. I mean, even in Heisman Trophy years, you always have one that is kind of a dud for players. But what was the biggest reason you saw for that on Saturday?
Yeah, that's a good one. Blake's actually played pretty decent against Iowa State. And on Saturday, and coming into the game, I actually wrote this, Iowa State, they were a pressure team. In a sense, they got pressure, but they didn't sack the quarterback much, but make you move. And I thought a lot of that was due to the fact they dropped so many guys. They'll drop 7, 8 all the time and figure you won't be consistent. So I think early on, Blake wasn't seeing it as clean as he normally does. Of course, the rain didn't help either, because sometimes in the rain, you want to be 100% sure before you release it. So I'm really not sure. I think it was one of those games where Iowa State, realized that Blake had a good game against them last year. They also had film on kind of how our offense morphed last week. So I think they had a few games. And when you have a team that likes to drop a lot of guys, like they do, they drop 8 very consistently, they muddy up a lot of water, play a lot of games. And I think that's what they did. Plus, we never really got them into really what I would call advantageous downs and distances for us. And so it all kind of fell on Blake's shoulders, and he just didn't have a clean game. And, that happens. And hopefully this week, he'll play much better.
JJ, one of the recurring issues that have been brought up throughout the year and even dating back to kind of the start of the losing streak, so to speak, last year is the slow starts. And, Aranda addressed that, said he was surprised by that and whatnot on Saturday. But from a player's point of view, can you recall episodes of having slow starts? And if so, what was the cure-all eventually? What changed that, or what got your teams off to faster starts and not in that position to begin with?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have been. I want to say maybe it was my junior year. We just weren't as quick out the gate and got behind. I think we actually started out like a 1-3 or something. And really, Coach Reedy at that time was the offensive coordinator. Coach Tess last year, he would get us to the point where we're almost scrimmaging before the pregame. I tell you. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but we would line up against like they do, like Baylor does, and we would actually hit. I mean, they wouldn't take anybody to the ground to kind of get us going. But I think beyond that, I think really what it is just the plan coming in. And think about this, guys. I mean, this is what we've seen the whole season. And I'm a firm believer that it is about plays in some sense of scheme, but a lot of it is about players. You'd be amazed at how many times teams with good players have energy because big plays are being made. If you think early on, second play of the game, Blake hits Drake Dabney on a skinny tight end post to his right. And if he catches it, he's at least going to make 15, 20 yards. But he drops it. We go 3 and out, we punt, and then they come down and score. And you can kind of feel okay, here we go. Because we hadn't played well at home. And that's what I mean about players. Like, to me, it's Dabney is the kind of player that, and he actually I think he came out and made a couple. If he makes that play, right, it may change the feeling and tenor of the game coming off of last week, but we didn't. And that's the kind of team we have this year. Unfortunately, we're just missing when we don't need to miss, and then it's impacting the whole energy of the whole game.
So, did this coaching staff misevaluate talent, or were they caught up in the scenario of this is the new world of how you recruit, and they weren't necessarily ready for that either? And this is what you get when you weren't ready for that.
Man, that's a good question. Because I'll tell you, just looking at it, here's my concern. My concern has been, it's like many other Baylor players, you're just concerned that for Baylor, and I've said this to you guys, if we miss, the climb back can be long and hard. Mm-hmm. And right now, the fact is, right? I mean, forget headlines. The fact is, we have not really been competitive against what I would call teams that were Power 5 last year. We've been competitive against two teams that were, one Power 5 team, which was Utah, and we've not won in a while against what I would call a Power 5 team from 2022. So that lends itself to one or two things in a combination. It's either we look at kind of our coaching and staff and evaluate, okay, hey guys, what we're doing, have teams caught up with us? Or then we look at the same time, we're looking at our players and saying, hey, did we miss something? And I think there's a combination in there that the staff knows much better than I do because they're with the players every day. But I would say that we're a little bit behind because think about it. Kansas and Kansas State and now Oklahoma and Texas are those expected. Those guys are where we feel like we should be because we were there. And it all boils down to kind of, the players that you're sending out there every day and every weekend, they're picking it up and are they executing?
JJ, in terms of that execution, I guess that's probably the answer to my next question. But if you could delve a little deeper, what is the issues or issue that stands out as the most glaring when it comes to their struggles on defense? Is it as simple as just missed tackles allowing big plays to bust open and hurt you, or is it a bit more complicated than that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty basic. I think if you look at it, and I go back, man, and watch some of these games, I definitely do watch the games coming up and stuff, at least the teams coming up, and you'll look at it and we'll have a young player bust or misread, or we'll have a veteran player consistently have a bust or misread. And I think it's more apparent and glaring to us because we are coming off of a group of players, defensively at least. They made the play. They made the right reads and play consistently. The Dylan Doyle, we saw those guys, and the guys we know that are in the NFL. And this year what's happening is, in addition to maybe us not being able to dislodge off blocks and stuff, we're making a misread, or maybe we're trying to do too much. And when that happens, man, people are coming out of the gate. And one of the things I've said in the past is that if that's the case, if you're going to struggle up front a little bit, you better have a bad son of a gun at safety. And I like our safeties. Don't get this wrong. I like Lemire. I like Bobby. I like those guys. But if you're going to have some bust up front, you got to have a Chris Miller, a Graylin Arnold, JT Woods cleaning it up. You got to. And I think these guys are kind of young, and they're also sometimes making them mistakes.
JJ, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
JJ Joe, former Baylor quarterback, radio color analyst on Baylor Radio, with us on Mondays at
Fall is that time of year when we get cozy and comfortable. Now, during Du Bois Furniture's Fall Mattress Savings Event, improve the way you sleep on a new Tempur-Pedic or Sealy mattress. Plus, get special financing only at Du Bois Furniture.
Hail damage to your roof can be costly to your home, so why not protect yourself now? Get your roof repaired or replaced by Central Texas's most trusted roofer, Centex Roof Systems. Our team will evaluate your damage and get you a quote fast so we can repair your roof quickly and efficiently. After the storm, call the name you can trust. Call Centex Roof Systems today for your quote or visit us online at centexrs.com. Your hometown roofer, Centex Roof Systems. God bless Texas.
What sets Hillcrest Dental Care apart is our vision of how we want to help other people be able to smile and be healthy and improve their quality of life.
When I came in, I had no teeth from here back because the bridge came off.
We were able to use dental implants, commonly referred to as a smile in a day, and literally take out the bad teeth and put in the new permanent teeth all in one day.
It looks natural to me. I don't feel guarded now. I'm enjoying my teeth.
Crafted for comfort, crafted for style, crafted to last. Fall is the time of year when we get cozy and comfortable. During Du Bois Furniture's Fall Savings Event, save store-wide, plus secret in-store discounts, plus special financing at Du Bois Furniture.
You can trust the KWTX First Alert Weather Team.
Darby Brown at McLean Stadium, Baylor and Houston just after 2:30 today in a game where both teams need a win, would like a win, and, of course, have not had that many. Darby joins us with Paul Craig. I'm David Smoak again from McLean Stadium. Darby, you're there every week, home games, road games, whatever. Your thoughts about just the game itself? This has got a little bit of that rivalry from the old days, as we've mentioned in the Southwest Conference. Do you see much of Houston fans? Because their colors will show up very brightly with that red.
Yeah, they will. I haven't seen any quite yet, although it is still a little bit earlier than maybe we would usually even get out here. But it's starting to fill in as far as Baylor fans, at least, in the tailgating parts of the stadium. So I would expect, Houston fans are going to show up. I mean, it's a 3-hour drive. Why wouldn't they want to come? I know it's a down year, but still bringing back these rivals and things, you'd expect for Houston to have a good crowd here. And Baylor fans, I think they're still showing up. So that's good as well.
Darby, Blake Shapen had his worst game last week. Do you expect a bounce back maybe this week, considering that he has been the brightest spot for Baylor all year?
He has been a bright spot. What's tough now, though, is who is he working with? I mean, the receivers are dealing with some injuries, so I think that's obviously going to, it's going to impact what Blake can do. But, yeah, I think he'll be dialed in and focused. It has been a bright spot. I don't think that's been talked about enough. Obviously, it comes with the losing season, but Blake has, he's been solid for Baylor, and so hopefully he can kind of bounce back for the Bears today.
Darby, going back to the fans, how much do you think Baylor fans need to see a good performance today at McLean Stadium, given kind of how the home slate has gone? A lot made about 8 home games. Here we are, and game 7 of the 8? They're 1-5. Now with Houston rolling in. So we've seen them show up and support, but they haven't been given a lot of reasons to, get even more hyped than they are. So do you think it's important for the home fans to see a good showing today?
Absolutely. I mean, these fans, Coach Aranda said they deserve more, and they do. I mean, if they continue to show up, like you said, this many home games, that means they're making plans. A lot of people coming, from Dallas, Austin, et cetera, to get here to Waco, and it hasn't been worth it up until this point. So it would be nice for the fans. I think that's kind of their feeling. I will say, kind of just talking with some of the fans this morning, it's definitely like, let's get a win.
Yeah.
But is it going to feel that good? I don't know. But, a win is a win. So, it's kind of just everyone, they're all hoping for it, whether it means a lot or not.
Darby, last question for me is that we've heard Aranda say that, they practice well. They don't carry it to the game. They've over and over. And you mentioned Matt Jones said that. Your thoughts about, man, that gets tiresome, right? When you hear that every week and why they can't carry it over, it makes you wonder what they're seeing in practice, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it does. It is a weird statement that we've heard over and over again, and I know it's very irritating to the Baylor fans. And last week, I think Coach Aranda even said they had their best, pregame situation, which made everybody sort of, what does that mean? And so, yeah, it is strange to hear about how, well they feel like they're practicing, and obviously they're going against each other. So maybe that's part of it, but why isn't it showing up out on the field? That is a sort of a mystery. And obviously I think it comes from finding that energy this group has. For some reason, it's sort of strange to hear about a team struggling so much with finding energy right out the gate. But, maybe it starts with that, and hopefully they can kind of figure that out. But it definitely, it's strange. It is sort of a statement that I know everyone is sort of tired of hearing. And so, hopefully they can kind of change the script.
All right, stay dry. It's going to maybe be a little bit of a spit, as you mentioned earlier, but maybe that early morning mist. We'll see you soon, Darby. Thank you for being up early with us with the CW and Game Day Live. We appreciate your time. Darby Brown with us on Game Day Live. Garrett Ross, Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, and I'll have my thoughts and prediction on today's game, Houston and Baylor. Game Day Live on the CW and 365 Sports.
Game Day Live, sponsored locally by TFNB, your bank for life, Central Texas Plumbing Solutions, and Centex Roof Systems.
At Dr. Smiley, you're always our top priority. Dr. Lee, Dr. Lim, and the friendly staff are committed to delivering exceptional and professional care in general, family, cosmetic, and emergency dental services. Get $2,699 implant, abutment, crown, 3D CBCT scan, and consultation with IV sedation available. Dr. Smiley accepts Medicaid and most dental insurance. Call Dr. Smiley today at 254-732-2606 and book your appointment now.
Shelley's business needs to be more efficient, and she heard hybrid meeting would help. She called Asbel Electronics, and we took her vision and created a space that was easy to use and maximized live interaction in the office while fully interacting with customers and remote workers. Pastor Dave wanted to live stream his Sunday services, so he called Asbel Electronics. We implemented technologies that brought the in-church experience to the living room while minimizing volunteers' workflow. Let us make your vision come true. Contact Asbel Electronics for all your professional audio-visual needs.
Hey folks, Derek Scott here with Jim Turner Chevrolet. I would like to thank everyone that supports the JTC family and let you know that our family values your business. Our new inventory is growing daily and used inventory is stacking high. So come find new roads at Jim Turner Chevrolet and give us the opportunity to earn your business with transparency and zero hidden fees. So give us a call, 840-3261 or 24/7 at turnerchevy.com. And remember folks, we're just a heartbeat away in McGregor. We'll treat you like family.
There's some games that have kicked off, including Texas and Kansas State. Texas with the ball for the second time near midfield. And that game, of course, with huge implications, not only in the Big 12, but possibly in the college football playoff. Also, Notre Dame early 3-0 on Clemson. Tennessee 7-0 early on UConn. A&M and Ole Miss are playing, and Ole Miss has the ball at their own 33. That game is early, no score. Arkansas jumps on Florida quickly, 14-0, 5 minutes into that game in Gainesville.
And the eternal question of if it's a wild hog and an alligator, who wins that battle? And right now, Wild Hog doing well. Razorbacks 14-0 in a win. They need so bad. They're in a very similar position to Houston and Baylor in that those fans need something badly to be happy about. Badly.
Yeah, they're just kind of lost in that shuffle. They've had a couple of decent runs, but they just kind of get lost in the shuffle. And now they have Texas and OU entering their territory too.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun thing to have those rivals back, but yeah, how much farther does it put you back from where you are? I mean, you're a bottom dweller in the SEC. You're just going to only be more so a bottom dweller in the SEC. Might have a good year here and there. And on occasion, knock off Oklahoma, Texas, and A&M, and win games like that, and it'll give you, some things to brag about. But for the most part, that's going to be few and far between. Man, shout out to Tennessee. It was such a tough game this late in the year playing UConn, who's 1-7, with this tough SEC schedule. Got that little layup there at the end of the year. I cannot stand that. Especially in a year like this where I don't think outside of Georgia there's just this dominant run that you have to go through that it's like, oh, well, it's different. We play a less game because our schedules is tough. I don't think that's true this year.
No.
I don't think that's true at all. And so the fact that there is that game, I think just makes it more glaring how silly that is to be playing UConn this late in the season when everybody else is playing, K-State, Texas, and Bedlam and games like that. I know Tennessee will have theirs. They've played Bama recently and all that, but that's still just silly to me, especially in a down year like this.
But they when you have that argument, you're fine if everybody winds up good, right? You can say look, the schedule's tough, and you're like, well, none of us like it, but I mean, they are right. The schedule's tough. Everybody else has a cupcake. They just play it earlier in the year. The SEC plays it later, but the thing that makes it more maddening is they never even accounted for the fact that hey, what if you guys are all kind of average?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're like everybody else? Then it's going to look bad. And then that's the wild thing about ego, right? Is that if it's unchecked and out of control, you're like, well, that's never going to happen.
Well, it also doesn't hurt when you have an entire network that's not going to bring up even a thought about that.
Occasionally,
because they have you.
Look, occasionally even Emerald burns a dish, right?
Right.
I mean, bam! Oh, it's on fire. Crap, we got to start over. That's just how it is.
All right, so Texas, Malik Murphy almost hit a long touchdown pass earlier in the game. He just hit Mitchell for a long touchdown pass of about 40 yards. And UT with a nice start early against Kansas State, and they're not trying to be conservative. I said that during the week. It seemed like in the past, UT, when someone has come in, a quarterback, they have gone, and not just like, I'm not talking yours, et cetera, but they're not afraid to get very, very aggressive. Hits a long touchdown pass, Texas on Kansas State, early 7-0.
Yeah, I could compare that to like when Shane Buechele would come in when Sam Ehlinger was out. Even though Shane Buechele was a fine college quarterback in his own right and wound up, I guess at SMU, right, and played there. But they would really dial it back when he was in there. And with Malik Murphy, Steve Sarkisian's like, no, this guy's got one true strength, which is he's got a cannon attached to his right arm, and we're gonna fire that cannon. And he certainly did there.
He's got a gun, no question. Is it accurate? It looks like it has been so far today.
Yeah, I mean, a good play, good throw, good catch, and he's got weapons around him. I mean, that's the thing is may not have a lot of experience, but he's got star wide receivers, a star running back, and a big offensive line, and a lot of toys to play with. So Kansas State, if they had a weakness, I think it's been their secondary. So you wondered how much they would fare or how well they'd fare against big plays, which Texas is certainly capable of popping in the passing game, and Texas has got them already. So we'll see what K-State's offense can do. Didn't really see a lot on that first drive to get too excited about, but that's another thing is Texas can hit the big plays in the passing game. That's where K-State's probably the weakest. And then K-State's bread and butter is the running game, and that's where Texas's defense is strong. So, add in that it's in Austin, and that's why I picked Texas in this game. But a long way to go here. Still, though, you can't dig too much of a hole if you're the Wildcats because I don't think you're really well equipped to get into like down 14, down that type of score, and then expect to get stops and score points. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see their response here.
There's a little pick-me-up in Malik Murphy's step as you can see him 7-0 Texas, especially with K-State wanting to run the ball. You get down too far, you get out of what you do, your personality. All right, Craig, it is Houston, it is Baylor. We've had to kind of get through this every single week. I have been fortunate through the 8 games to be right 6 times, which is a little rare for me. Levi is 7-1 in picking the score of Baylor and their opponent. Your thoughts about today?
What am I?
I didn't look. Okay. I can tell you real quickly, though.
No, I'm sure it's not that great, but I didn't realize we were keeping track, but that's good.
I didn't either until someone brought it up to me, yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I'll take Baylor in this game. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they'll actually show some cojones at home, and we'll actually get up and fight a little bit and show some energy and show some fight, being the key word. But I'm not picking them beyond this game. They can win 70-0 today. I'm not picking them anymore this year. So this is their last go-around for me as far as feeling like they have a chance to win a game. And so I'll pick them today in a tight one. I don't think they win convincingly, but I'm going to go Baylor, and, we'll see what happens.
Craig's 5-3. Paul, your thoughts on this one? Yeah,
I'm 4-4, and some of that's because I actually picked them to win, and they didn't. So it wasn't all negative. And I picked them to lose to UCF, and they came back and won that one. I think this is going to be an ugly game between two teams that are just not very successful right now doing anything. I picked Houston by 3. I don't feel good about any of these picks because I don't know which team is going to show up for either side. But Baylor is yet to put together an impressive game at home, and I doubt today will be impressive for either one of them if they win. But somebody's got to, even when 2 bad teams play. But I've got Houston winning this one by 3.
I have Houston 27-21. Again, it's just like we guess. We're absolutely throwing darts at a board that's like 200 miles away with these picks.
Well,
I do think Houston's speed might be the difference. I know Baylor has speed, but I think maybe a kick return or something like that with Golden or someone else.
Well, I mean, I think they're informed, but on a game like today, I mean, it's a total throw crap at the wall.
It is.
Just get. I mean, there's not really a science to this game today. You know what I mean? Like, you can look at every graph and metric you want to. There's really not. It's just a matter of who shows up and plays better. And with these two teams, you never know on any given Saturday who that's going to be.
You're right. Garrett, real quickly, your pick if you don't mind. Thank you.
I'm going to ride with Houston in this. I have no faith in Baylor's offense. You have key playmakers out. The defense has struggled against teams with explosive receivers, and Houston has a ton of them.
All right, Paul Catalina, thank you. Craig Smoak, thank you. Garrett Ross, Darby Brown, thank you. Our sponsors on the CW and 365 Sports. Baylor, Houston, just after 2:30. Paul will have the post game. I'm David Smoak. Have a great day. This is 365 Sports and the CW.
Central Texas Plumbing Solution is the team you can count on to go the extra mile and resolve your plumbing problems quickly and thoroughly, getting it done right the first time. So when you need some help before the big game, call Central Texas Plumbing Solutions.